Hi, it's Michael Kerr here, presenting Small Business Banter. A healthy micro and small business sector means a successful economy and a more vibrant society. Small Business Banter is about helping regional business owners better prepare for current challenges, but also for the next stage of business success. I'm Michael Kerr, founder of KereKere, advisors to business owners. Each week, I interview a fellow small business owner or an expert, and they share their stories, their lived experiences, the wins and the losses, and their best advice to help you, the listener, get the most you can from your own business. Small Business Banter is brought to you from the studios of 104.7 Gippsland FM and is heard across Australia on the Community Radio Network. And thanks also to KereKere, supporters of the show. Welcome back to the second part of my interview with James Murphy from KereKere. He's a business and social entrepreneur. This interview is the second in a two-part series that is focused squarely on the unique challenges that confront founder-owners of social enterprises and for-purpose businesses when it comes to exiting. If you missed the first interview, it was with Ros Campbell from Suno. Anyway, let's go now to the second part of my discussion with James, and he outlines some of the real nitty-gritty detail that you need to pay attention to, both to run your business successfully and then ultimately to set you up for a better exit outcome when the time's right. If you missed anything in the series to date, or even if you want to listen to one of the 65 plus and growing episodes, check out the Small Business Banter podcast. You seem to have a very high level of consciousness about why you're in a business. I mean, it's for some people, having a business and owning it for 20, 30, 40 years has been and continues to be a fantastic way to do your own thing, create some personal wealth and have your business to run the way you want to do it. For you, it seems there's something that, with a pattern of starting 3 and selling 2, that, it's time for somebody else, and therefore that a business doesn't have to be forever. It can be something that, you have your time in it. The business still, survives, but it might be under different ownership. And for owners then to just be tuned into, there'll be another opportunity they can go and build, and they'll get their passion or their vigor back.
Well, I think, I've always been conscious of making sure you leave something in it for the person who buys the business, in terms of not trying to sort of max out. So I've always been conscious of getting out, before you sort of feel like, you're in that total maintenance mode, there's a new opportunity coming or whatever it is. But for me personally, I mean, I think, there's certainly better ways to make money out there in the world, and I think for me, business is really around, it's about creating that sort of, that, world, I suppose, with a particular value set and a particular environment, and being able to sort of nurture and contribute to that, whether it be, supporting a team or, promoting a certain sort of, way of interacting with people, or in our case, generosity and different favours in terms of how we can look after each other as a community. That's really the centre of what I do. So I think, and even probably, my wife's 30 weeks pregnant at the moment, and so I've been trying to, stay pretty low profile and not be in the shop and those sort of things. You really miss it, and you miss the connections, and you really sort of underestimate how much of that incidental sort of, chat you might have with 300 or 400 customers across the day, and how much that does sort of, go to your own well-being, separate to anything, from the financial side, So, I mean, it's definitely sort of just about, it's probably taken me, the 13 years to sort of find that balance of what works really, and really understanding what you're doing it for. I think it takes a long time, because in the first many years, it's just challenges, and
one
challenge
after the other.
And
it really, if you're going to be an owner and you're going to exit there's this for most. There's a period where it's just a grind and hard work, and then you get to enjoy it if it goes
Yeah,
well. And from your perspective, leaving something in it for the next owner is, it's always people will take that as they want, but showing some upside, real upside for a business is that there's still something left in the tank is always very important in getting that owner, getting the buyer across the line at the last minute, because they're always perpetually concerned about what happens if and when the owner leaves. Does it all fall apart?
yeah, well, that's right. I mean, that's why it's nice to look at two businesses and say, in my case, yeah, I'd definitely say that they've made them better. Sometimes I look back and go, why couldn't I just, run it for, another 8 years? But it's just not in, it's just not in my personality to do that. So I think that sort of learning, more about yourself is sort of part of the process, I think. And I think probably maybe, looking back, I mean, sometimes you just need to sell to know what it feels like too,
Well, it's
Yeah.
a pretty, it is a traumatic experience, isn't it? To go through the sale process from.
Well, I mean, it really depends on, how you approach business. But for someone like me who's, business is very personal, in terms of what you do, and, it's a whole lot of people, and, you transact with them, every day. I mean, my focus is all about how we turn transactions into exchanges, So, when you do leave something like that behind, definitely,
I mean,
um,
that's your, two sales. So, if you look at the process of preparing the business, and then you look at the
yeah,
process of identifying potential buyers, ideally, and then you look at dealing with interested parties, them trying to find finance, them being unsure about whether it's, it takes the interviews on this podcast to date have been largely with regional businesses, and the time for selling is often years, as in 2, 3,
yeah,
4
yeah,
years.
that's
So
right.
It's a whole other thing to survive and get out the other end of a business sale with a check, but also with a feeling that
Yeah,
you've done the right thing at the
but
right
obviously,
time.
well, and obviously you helped me with the last one. But I mean, I tried to sell my last one, using an agent, and just nothing happened. And just uh, that was just, I was like, this just, looking at the trend, the way it was handled, and I just was like, this is not the way to do it. And so I suppose, me being me, I was like, I'm going to sell this myself. And that's where your assistant's just mentoring and different things. I mean, for me, regardless of the sale price at the end, I was just pretty proud to be able to sell the business myself, and navigate that process. And I think
Well,
that was probably the most exciting thing of that whole process is to transact it yourself, and hand it on, for something that's quite personal. Business is so personal. So one of the best things is that personal handover at the end, where it's not just sort of like, okay, I'm ready to sell, call the broker, and then, at some point in time you sort of walk away. So I think that's sort of not necessarily the way of the future, with this sort of stuff. Yeah.
well, you did. Yeah, the first sale we worked on together, and that was
Yeah.
maybe 7 or 8 years ago. And we were very selective about who we spoke to, and in terms of vetting why they were interested and do they have the right credentials. But the second one, yeah, with the experience of going through a sale once, you were able to do the do-it-yourself sale program with a lot more understanding of what a sale process is about, and perhaps some of the nuances and some of the areas where you could probably do it better because you're closer to the business.
Yeah, and I think people forget that, and I think definitely, the sort of brokers sort of forget that is how much, I mean, you just innately know your business, so well. You can sort of, for someone like me, I can look at my, cost of goods and work out when the prices went up, or, different, when someone put up the price of milk or coffee, or, we charge an extra 20 cents, so those different ways of knowing, even from the back end, from the cost structure, and then to sort of marketing and the different ways of, what makes the business go up and down. And, I mean, at the moment, in the Fitzroy Gardens. I mean, I sort of keep a spreadsheet, and I just did the weekly report before this, for this week, and it says, the exact same week last year, it rained 5 days in a row, and we're looking at 5 days a row, 5 days in a row of rain this year, and it's
What are
those
the
sort of
odds?
it's those rhythms that they do repeat, and I think you really do sort of look at those different sort of cycles, and once people sort of understand that, you can really not only run the business better, but also sort of communicate that to sort of someone else, because just looking at a straight P&L or something like that, it really doesn't give you the picture,
Well,
of what
that was
it
one
does.
that's one of the things working with you was you were all over your numbers, and
I've got three accountants in the family, or
yep.
four. My brother now.
So you didn't end up an accountant, but you ended up very good at understanding how your business is operating day to day, and able to, in the case of potential buyers, say, look, this happened this time last year, and this is why it happened, and this it's different this year. So it's an incredibly.
But I think I was just thinking about it too. Started talking about my granddad's. When I look at how they sold the business, one of them, gave it to his brother in the end, and they sort of went off and did that. And then the other one, he sort of sold it to one of his employees, and both times, they probably could have maxed out on price, a lot more. But, but for them it was, maybe. I mean, maybe, but it's just about, it's about sort of, the exit is a really interesting thing, and just having some. I suppose that is the biggest lesson I had from my first shop sale, is that you might have this lump sum of cash in the bank, but for me, like, it personally didn't really change much. It was this weird feeling of going, oh my god, like that didn't really change. It was not what you expected. Just getting a check. So
Look at
it's. Yeah.
No, it does. But it's interesting with your uncles, and that one of those things you mentioned there, employees, buying out businesses. That is becoming, in terms of the work I do day to day, a large percentage of the stuff I advise on, because there's people, I think, finally realising that their jobs are more at risk, or they don't have one, or they see the owner, the baby boomer owner, looking around, wondering what to do, and they're more active in chasing up these opportunities. And the other one was handing it over and to somebody else. And I'm aware of businesses that haven't had anything like a sale contract. It's just been a handshake agreement. This is going back, but that's it's a wonderful. It says a lot about the people that own the business and why they're in business, and what they want to, they want to leave a legacy, or they want to give somebody else an opportunity, and that sort of stuff is pretty joyous to hear.
Well, I think that's I mean, in the end, I always say about my staff or myself, I mean, what drives us is feeling proud about the work that we do, and proud about the contribution we make, and if we can find that in a way that means that people and the customers, one of our goals is that the customer always walks away feeling like they got more than what they paid for, and so really sort of leaving that value on the table, so if you can find those ways where you do feel proud, those, small interactions, is sort of probably no different to the sale process, in trying to sort of find that way, because in the end you want to look back and, you want to see it being successful, really, in terms of after you leave.
Yeah. Look, if you put that much of yourself into building it to where it is, to finding the right home for the business, of course you're going to think you want to see it succeed, and it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cases where that doesn't happen, and it's just purely and only about taking the most amount of money off whoever will pay it. But there are also a lot of people, and owners that have that care, and they will not sell to buyer A, but maybe to buyer B because of personal reasons or other non-financial reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, but I mean, it takes years to sort of work that through in terms of your own feelings, and that's the big thing I've learned, sort of being able to balance that, and really sort of understand what you're doing it for and how it works, and so therefore what you'd sell it for. But like you mentioned before, I mean, you know, I mean, we're not quite in a position yet to explore this, but I mean, with my staff group, I mean, I would love to find a way to, them sort of carry it on, because I mean, that's the point. I mean, I think I've realised, you might get a couple of times earnings, in terms of the sale price, and you walk away with that. But once you've been on a bit, if you can find a way to develop that shared prosperity, with the people that put that same love that you put into it, like that's, almost just as, probably more enjoyable than your own. I think that's sort of, because it's sort of like third time for me in terms of, potential sale. You sort of look for different elements, and this time, I suppose, even looking at what that might look like in the future.
Look,
if you could have a group of people, that'd be great.
Look, I think it for the business to have a group of engaged employee/owners is a big part of the answer to making your business successful. I look at businesses every day, financials, cost of wages, biggest cost in most businesses, but often gets the least amount of attention and the least amount of investment. And there's this, there's very definitely a significant trend to employees looking to buy into the business they're working in. Reasons range,
yeah.
But it is a true wealth creation opportunity, not in the fast buck kind of wealth creation way, just in a sharing, as you say, sharing the prosperity and underpinning both your job, because you got more control, and secondly building some wealth over time. So those models, employee ownership trust and other mechanisms are going to get more and more focus. And if you've got a business that's cause based, purpose based, purely for profit, whatever, if you've got engaged staff who've got a share of it, it's a hell of a start.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree. So
well, that's great, James. Look, we're coming up to about the end of it, so love chatting to you. Some really wonderful insights, and not a bad business philosophy underpinning everything you've done. Have you got another business or two in you to start or to buy and build and sell?
Look, I think you definitely do. And I think that's sort of my lesson is probably I put absolutely everything into the first. And and sort of I'm learning to sort of maybe pace yourself a little bit more. And definitely, I always used to say, with business, someone needs to hold the baby, in terms of, really sort of making sure you're looking after everything. But I think when I'm signing,
you've now got
babies myself.
Yeah. So two.
That's right. So that's sort of
both kinds of babies. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. The kind that you really need to give a lot of time to, and that's been great for me. Probably the best thing that's happened to me, just to sort of look at different ways of giving people ownership, and sort of stepping back and probably caring less. I know it sounds awful, but really allowing the space for other people to grow into,
devolving the responsibility to others and giving them the learning opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got many more in me, mate.
That's good. That's really good to hear, and I look forward to tracking them. For owners, whether they be business builders and sellers, a bit like yourself, or maybe they're at the end of 30 years, in a business and they're ready to do something new, maybe retire, maybe go, travel's challenging, but they're thinking about life after business. What are your couple of, key things to ensure they get the best sale result, the best exit they can, if you were to pick one or two from what we've just chatted about through tonight?
Well, I suppose the main thing, and I do this in my day-to-day, business approach, is really looking at, how you can turn those transactions into exchanges, and really sort of, I suppose my big thing is that, we're all, like an auction, trying to maximize out, and try to get as much, for it, and pay as little as possible, but somewhere in the middle is a really nice sort of exchange, and I think, if you can find that in a business sale. I remember the lawyers in my first sale said, wow, like I've been doing this for 10 years and I've actually never gone for coffee after we've transacted, and just sort of celebrated and had a nice chat and wished each other the best. Normally it's quite hostile.
Yeah, it's
so
police and guards and all. Yeah,
that's right. So it's, very sort of proud of that. But I think the other thing is for people looking at selling is that, you really do need to close a chapter, to sort of all sort of make space for what that next thing might be, because you sort of can't create that otherwise. You really do.
Is that a bit about trusting yourself to do it again? If you're at the the stage or age or stage where you don't want to hang on forever, back yourself because there'll be another one if you get out.
Oh well, look, I think sometimes. I'm sort of a believer that it all comes together every now and again, and it's at various periods you think, hang on a sec, what am I doing this for, or you sort of sell and go, I'm never going to work 18 hours a day again, and then sort of a couple of years, but, years later you're like, I'm just loving it, and I think, like anything, it goes in those sort of ebbs and flows. But if you're, all in on sort of one particular thing, and if it's thinking about something else, you really can't, it's sort of, it doesn't work that way. You sort of got to find that space to even explore the next thing, So
I think if it's in your blood, and it is pretty hard to to go through what you need to go through, and then all of a sudden sell it, and then and go play golf or I don't know, do something like that. Business owners
it's
fall
humbling,
apart a bit
I
after
suppose.
Sometimes being the center of everything for a period of time and then having money in the bank or the day-to-day stresses off their back, but without a lot of personal purpose or motivation or structure. So,
well, I think the biggest thing is, when you sell, unless you're desperate to get out, it's generally going pretty well, like, and so the hardest thing is to sort of take something, like in my case, you go from selling 1,000 coffees a day, and then you sort of go down to a new shop and, you might be doing 200, and so you sort of that sort of drop down, not only from a financial point of view, but from a community point of view, you don't have all these people engaged and you haven't reached a point where you've sort of, got enough customers to satisfy your break even, but the reality is, that's where sort of, for someone like me, I get my motivation from, and that's where the enjoyment is, and so that's where it comes down to the type of person you are. And if you're not that type of person, well, you're probably better to be on the other side of the transaction and buying that business, so that's sort of more about sort of learning and being true to yourself, to sort of understand that.
Yeah, I love the awareness you have of, your capabilities and values. It's great, James. So look, we'll bring this to a close. Thank you very much for being generous with your time and your insights, and I'm sure.
Thanks for having me.
Well, it's a pleasure always, James, and we're doing it with a virtual beer. I wish you well in the next stage, and I'll talk to you in the near future. Thanks, James.
Great. Thanks, Michael. Cheers.
Well, what an excellent chat with James Murphy from KereKere. As you can tell, he draws a lot from his personal upbringing, family, etc., as well as being finely tuned on an ongoing basis to his environment, his business environment, including his customers, his staff, his community. I really like the way James thinks about his businesses. There's been a clear purpose for starting them, and because of a really strong alignment of personal and business goals, he has a clear runway, if you like, or a no baggage approach to the way he runs them. From working with James through both his exits, one of which was a do-it-yourself sale program, I can tell you he has managed exceptionally well to combine and to benefit from having a cause/purpose-based social enterprise style business that is commercially sustainable. So with 2 exits under his belt, his advice on the process of exiting is really worth listening to. We discussed openly his tips and learnings on selling a business throughout the interview, but for me, I particularly like these three. Firstly, understand your numbers at a detailed level while you are running the business so you can make it more profitable, but also so you can explain the upside to a potential buyer when you're selling and to make the sale more likely. Secondly, know when it's time to sell. The signals are different for all individual owners, but all owners will hear the signal. I keep saying that. It might come in the form of being tired or bored or wondering. Whatever it is, listen to it so that you can leave the business in a positive way with something left in it for the buyer. If you don't listen to that signal, you stay too long and the business suffers. And lastly, for those businesses that are cause or purpose-based or even a full-on social enterprise, that defining underlying purpose can be an asset when selling as long as it's explained to the buyer, e.g., it's a competitive advantage or a differentiator, and as long as the core business is also commercially sustainable. That's the end of my 2 interview series on exiting for social enterprise and for purpose business owners. Different outcomes, but successful for both James Murphy and Ros Campbell. As the social enterprise and for-purpose sector continues to explode, more and more founder owners will need to tackle this issue around exits. So I hope the really rich experiences that James and Ros shared with you gave you motivation to keep doing the hard yards, but also some insights and tips around how to ensure you get your deserved success in a future exit. So that is all for today's episode of Small Business Banter. I continue to be inspired bringing you small business experts and other small business owners and hearing their stories. If you want to listen to any past episode, jump onto your podcast platform of choice and search Small Business Banter. There you will find a diverse and fascinating collection of small business owners and experts openly discussing and sharing their experiences. For any of the links, resources, or information we've talked about on the show today, or to contact me, please head over to smallbusinessbanter.com, or you can find us on Facebook and Instagram. And it would be great to have you tune in the same time next week for another episode of Small Business Banter.